Welcome, learners. This is a session on devising strategy. Basically, in this session, we're going to learn what strategy is about, why do we require a strategy, and what benefit does strategizing give us in any kind of integrated marketing communication campaign, or creating a marketing strategy, or communicating for any purpose in particular. So let us begin with this session on devising communication strategy. First of all, let us try and understand what do we mean by strategy. Strategy is a thinking process. It is a new way of thinking. There are newer ways required for different customers being sold the same product. So say, for example, you're being sold comb or a shampoo. The same shampoo will be sold to different customer groups, different target audiences through different strategies. There can be a target segment which would require an anti-dandruff shampoo. There would be another target segment which would require better cleanliness and killing the hardness of water. There would be another target segment that would require more voluminous hair, and so they would like to apply that kind of a shampoo. So this is just an example to show how you sell the same shampoo to different target audiences using different strategies. Now, what exactly we mean by a strategy and what is this strategy we will term is what we're going to learn here. So when we're talking about selling a certain product to a given target audience, which are the ways we're going to implement? It is the ways that suit the customer. And how do you find out what are the ways that are suiting the customer? These days, the technological inventions have come to that fora where they are able to come up with newer strategies and technologies through which they know what kind of strategy will suit which kind of a target audience. This means that they have already done a psychographic analysis, a demographic analysis of their target audiences, and they know what is the attitude, what is the behavior, what is the kind of media habits these customers will have. And big data, for example, has made it all possible. So the marketer can address each consumer on a more personal basis. This is what is strategizing. So what do we exactly understand by this? We can sum it up as it is a thinking process, a new way of thinking. The ways that we implement are the ways that suit the customer, and it is all about knowing the customer. The better you know the customer, the sharper your selling message would be. So, strategy is the science of planning and directing a plan of action, keeping in mind the actions of the competition. So when you strategize, whatever brand you're strategizing for, whatever product or service you're strategizing for, it is planning and directing while you're also keeping in mind what the competition is doing with the product. They are into the market and they are selling the same product that you're selling. So what is it, the plan of action that they have, your competition, and how you're going to kill it to be one up them. Then strategy also tells how the objectives will be achieved. What is all the strategy, all the planning for? The multifarious ways that you use to plan, to decide what to do, how to implement a plan of action is all directed at achieving certain objectives. So those objectives, how they will be achieved is something that strategy tells us. Then strategy is a decision that affects the tactics. What are tactics? Tactics are those details of the strategy which we need to go to step by step in order to make that strategy successful. So strategy decides, the decision that you take on strategy affects the tactics and the tactical activities. Say, for example, corporate strategy. The corporate strategy could be the strategy that you use to show yourself in the market, the image that you would like to maintain in front of all your stakeholders, in front of the media, in front of audiences, in front of internal employees, so on and so forth. So this is your corporate strategy. Then you can also take the example of integrated marketing communication strategy. When you have marketing communications, I've already taken a session on this, and please refer to those sessions before you go ahead with this. Marketing communication strategy is the one that you implement in order to push your product in the market. So what are those communication strategies? How you would place your product, how you would like the audience to perceive your product is something that is decided by marketing communications. So there are strategies that you use in order to optimize the use of the communication mix and in order to optimize the use of the marketing mix. so as to achieve your target. Then let us also classify strategy into forward or backward strategy. What is forward strategy? Forward strategy is heavily planned. It is analyzed and it is far removed from the tactical activity. We just said that little steps, those are tactics, make up strategy. So forward strategy is when you do not decide the tactics first. You decide how to achieve an objective first, how to achieve an aim first, and then you decide what will be the smaller steps in order to achieve those objectives. Similarly, backward strategy is more retrospective in nature. So you do a set of activities, you carry out some communication campaigns, you do a few things, and together you decide out of all these set of activities which were the ones that were successful. So the tactics are developed first and strategies are written around them to suit them. This is called backward strategy. In the market, where it is the product or service being concerned, both kind of strategies are in use. So you can either go ahead with forward strategies where you know what the smaller blocks are, or you can go ahead with the backward strategy where you have not decided upon the strategy first, but you decide upon what have been the successful activities, successful communications, successful campaigns so far. Then you put them all together and build a strategy around them. That is called a backward strategy. The next is the types of strategy that we use. There are a number of strategies that I would now talk about. The first one is corporate strategy. These are the long-term moves to achieve corporate plans and corporate objectives. Say, for example, a company might decide that we want to put forth our corporate social responsibility efforts in front of the audience so as to be seen as more socially responsible. So their corporate strategy accordingly will change according to this. And it involves the senior management decisions. So these are things that would involve more finance. It would be a different projection of the company or the brand in media or in front of the customers. So this is a total long-term haul that you do to a company in order to sustain the kind of objectives that you have decided to achieve. Then we have operational strategy. Operational strategy is how does a company operate? What do we mean by this? Say, for example, a brand decides that all our chains in different cities of the country are going to be standardized in terms of taste, in terms of quality of product. I'm talking of a food chain here. So everything will be standardized so that there is no difference when the consumer consumes it in one city as compared to another city. So this is called operational strategy. We decide how we are going to operate with our product in the market. The third is marketing strategy. It involves the whole lot of marketing mix. It involves the choice of target markets. It involves exploiting competitive advantage and many other similar factors. Let me just try and describe what each means. When we say whole marketing mix, we know marketing is a set of activities that you do in order to push your product or service to a certain extent. So when you're pushing this, what kind of marketing mix are you using? Say, for example, are you making use of sales promotion? Are you making use of advertising? Are you creating more events? Are you taking media for a media tour so that they can see the place or see the product for themselves and see its use, so on and so forth? Or it is the choice of target markets. Have you placed a certain, for example, a car for the middle segment audiences, or is it for the highest end audiences? So that is the choice of the target markets. And then what is the kind of exploitative competitive advantage you have? How are you exploiting the USP of the competition? And USP, the unique selling proposition of the competition as well as your own organization, keeps changing from time to time. So how do you exploit the competitive advantage that you have for your own company over the advantage of the competition? Those are the few factors that make up the marketing strategy. Of course, it requires a lot of strategy formulation because you need to decide how to optimize your resources in order to achieve the desired objectives. Then we have product strategy. It determines and guides the decisions about product development. So far, say for example, a company produces refrigerators. So it might decide to open a new vertical of, say, microwave ovens, or say washing machines, or some such goods. So it determines and guides your decision about product development, what kind of verticals you're going to build. Or say, for example, a market has reached its saturation. Do you need to stop building this market further, and do you need to devise further strategies to get into another vertical? Because every product has a product life cycle. It starts at a certain point of time, and until it reaches the saturation, after fighting competitions, after strategizing thoroughly, there is an end to that product life cycle. So it gets over. So is it that you need to decide upon that? Those are the decisions that you make under product strategy. Then there is pricing strategy, which determines the pricing and pricing structures. For example, decisions about skimming the market or penetrating the market. Let me explain what it means. When we say skimming the market, I decide to produce a high-end product which is only for a selective few, which I know only those kind of target segments will choose who can afford it, who have the kind of purchasing power. On the contrary, I would like to offer telecommunication services, say data charges on phone are so minuscule these days that they have already reached the rural belt, and a smartphone is as cheap as 3,000 rupees. So ideally, that is the penetration of the market. You try to penetrate as many markets in all possible ways as possible. You want to see your product in everyone's hands, irrespective of whether they belong to the higher socioeconomic income group or the lower socioeconomic income group. As compared to this, like I said, skimming the market is for selected few target audiences who help you meet your sales volume. So it is not the sales volume that is increasing your profitability. It is the kind of customer you are trying to reach. So there can be a certain brand of car which sells only a few units in a month, but yet they are able to achieve their targeted profit margin. This is because they're only aiming at skimming the market and not penetrating the market. So pricing strategy will decide that, the pricing strategy of your product or service. Then we have distribution strategy. This determines the routes of distribution. Routes of distribution would be, how does your product reach the audience? What do I mean by this? When I talk about the distribution strategy in terms of reaching the audience, I talk about whether the route of distribution is through a parcel or say for example, a courier. Whenever you order a good or a service online, you see that that good will come to you through a courier. As compared to this, there can be multiple outlets. So on multiple levels, there can be distribution centers of that product where you can go physically and pick that product. So what kind of distribution strategy you would like to have? These days, as it is well known, both kind of strategies in distribution are equally good and they are equally successful. Because when you're talking about distribution of the product, the last objective is that the product should be able to reach the target audience. Whether it is reaching through a courier service or it is reaching through a physical outlet does not really matter so much. Marketing communications strategy is another type of strategy, where a sequences of messages, there are certain sequences of messages that are designed one after the other so as to produce the desired outcome, and it is shared with a specific target audience through optimum communications mix. Now, communication mix, marketing mix, and integrated marketing communications have a bearing. They are all connected to each other. Let me tell you how. When I talk about communications mix, it could be that I am trying to communicate my message to my audience through the means of an event, through, say, for example, a play. It could be about female feticide. It could be about any other social issue, or for that matter, the use of a product to attain a social good. That is also possible. So it is with the help of an event that I did it. This is a communication. Before that, I see to it that the targeted audience are given pamphlets or they are sent SMS through on the mobiles. So all this together is an example of communications mix. After the play, I take a feedback about how they liked the theme and whether they would participate in such kind of an event again. So this is all a part of communication mix. When I talk about marketing mix, it is about the various marketing tools that you use. It could be viral marketing, it could be SEM, it could be advertising, sales, promotions, direct mailers. It could be all those communications that you make use of, optimizing them in such a way that your desired objective is met. Maybe your objective is just awareness. So you want the people to know that there is a new brand in the market which is doing equally well and is priced less than the competition. So you would like the audiences to know about it. So this is an example of marketing strategy. And when we talk about integrated marketing communications is when you are combining the marketing strategies with the communication mix. So together it becomes integrated marketing communications. And all of it in great detail require devising a strategy, because you have to know how to optimize your resources in order to get your objectives. Then, of course, there is advertising strategy. Advertising separately, because advertising of late has been in vogue too much, and all brands, irrespective of whether they are spending huge amounts in media, on print, on online and electronic media, or they are making it on less cost through only use of new media. Irrespective of all that, each brand, even the younger entrepreneurs and the new upcoming companies, would like to advertise. So this is a sequence of messages that you share with the target audience through optimum media mix, as compared to marketing communication strategies where you're optimizing the communications mix. Here in advertising, you're optimizing the media mix. What do I mean by media mix? Media mix is a combination of various media that you're going to make use of so as to cut costs as well as achieve the desired objectives. So it could be a combination of sending an email alongside a handout, or sending an email or a message and at the same time advertising on the television, or coming up with a small advertisement in the newspaper as well as sending an email. So it could be a mix of various things together. So here we are talking about optimizing the media mix. This is the advertising strategy. So these are the various kinds of types of strategies that we have come across. Now let us try and understand what are the benefits of strategy. Why is strategy by any ways beneficial to us? Now, each tactical activity builds on others. One activity is followed by another and followed by another, so on. So the strengths of all of them come together in a comprehensive manner. This is the benefit of strategy. Then tactical planning is easier and quicker when the strategy is clear. When you know what is the road you got to follow and what objective you're going to reach, you know how to create smaller steps into achieving that particular objective. So tactical planning becomes easier and quicker. Thirdly, marketing communications, also called MarCom. Marketing communication strategy creates many more benefits through integration. When you're able to strategize that at such point of time we are going to use an event, another point of time we are going to advertise in the newspaper, and then we are going to send direct emails. So you are able to strategize it in such a manner that it creates more benefits. So you integrating the marketing communication, the strategy is such. Those are the benefits of strategy, and in the long run, they do pay well. Now let us see what are the components of marketing strategy. The right products in the right markets are important to be placed. By this, I mean that when you're placing, say for example, a small car in a larger segment, it would not sell so much, because people with greater purchasing power would like to show off, or maybe they like to use a bigger sedan. So when you're using the right, you're placing the right product in the right market, the chances of it getting greater sales volume increases. Then you need a clear market definition, and competitive strength and performance needs to be underlined. When we say this, clear market definition means you should know who it is that you're going to talk to. Who is your market? Is it the housewives? Is it the adolescents? Is it the young adults? Or is it the people who have gotten into a job, they are single and they have the purchasing power, they can spend on your product? Who is your target audience? Have a clearly defined market. That is very important. Then we require a competitive strength. What is your strength as compared to your competition? You have all heard of SWOT analysis, strength analysis, weakness analysis, opportunity and threat analysis. So this needs to be done so that you are able to position yourself, especially, with respect to your target audience and with respect to the competition against whom you're playing. And of course, the performance. Performance in terms of communication. How is it that communication and the various communication campaigns that you're carrying out, what kind of an output it is producing for you, is important to gauge and understand. So this is another important component of the marketing strategy. Then we have scope, objectives, resources, competitive advantage, and functions. Scope, say for example, when we talk about artificial intelligence, it is still upcoming and it has not captured the market on a large scale. And we all know that artificial intelligence is something that can be inbuilt into anything. It can be inbuilt into the household things, it can be inbuilt into office products, so on and so forth. So the scope of use and the variety of use is great. Hence, this is called the scope of any product or service. Then what are the objectives you're aiming at? Are you aiming at making things easier for people in general who are running out of time all the time? Or your objective is to reach every household in order to make things simpler for them? What is the objective? Then the kind of resources you are going to put to use, and that the resource that you are expecting the consumers to invest into your product or service is important to understand. Then competitive advantage, I just explained, as compared to your competition, what is the advantage you have as a product manufacturer or as a service provider is important to gauge. And the functions that your product or service will serve in order to benefit the customer. And benefit is the single most important thing when you're talking about consumers, because at the end of it, it is a market and there are a lot of products and services that you have in comparison to yours. So in order to ensure that the consumer picks what you want him or her to pick, it is important that you underline the functions very clearly. So this calls for a great clarity in the marketing strategy. Then we have the dimension, timing, commitment, and dilution. By dimension, we mean which sort of the scope that you're aiming to serve. The timing when you are reaching the audience. Every time is not suitable to reach the audience. Just because you are able to reach your potential customers or customers does not mean they are in the frame of mind to accept your communication. So one must make sure that the timing that you're making use of is perfect. The consumer or the person who you are targeting, the potential consumer, should be completely in a position to understand what you're saying and accept, because you are expecting certain kind of behavioral change. That could be in terms of purchasing your product or changing a behavior, building better civic sense. It could be anything. So ideally, what is the timing that you're using to reach out to your potential customer is important. Then the commitment that you show towards any social issue, social cause, because every company has certain core values. We will talk about it further. So the commitment that you show and the dilution of that commitment is also important to judge, because whenever you're talking about the perception of the audience, perception of the customers and the potential customers, they will judge you holistically. They are looking at the whole thing from the outside. So they are in a better position to judge how you are playing as compared to the other competitors. So this is important. Then, of course, the 3 C's are important, which are the customer, competition, and corporation. Corporation is your own corporation, your own organization, company, and the values that you stand for. The customer is the king. They are the people who you're looking at supporting you by purchasing your product or service. And the competition, who only makes things more challenging for you, more difficult, and at the same time, it's sometimes the market environment is such that they also help at collaborating with you and achieving objectives together. So to sum up these components, we have the products or the service. We have the markets or the customers. So the market is available to you to explore, and the kind of customers you are aiming at, the strength and competitive advantage that you provide as a part of the company that you belong to, the scope and the scale of service that you can provide is important, the objectives that you're aiming to reach, the resources that you have at hand, and the kind of resources you expect the potential customer or customer to spend, and the timing of communication reaching the target audience is again very important. So all these are important components of the marketing strategy. So if we try to sum up, we have discussed what is strategy and why is strategy important, and how knowing the customer is an important benefit that you get out of strategy, and how strategy has developed into a science of planning and directing a plan of action while keeping in mind what are your competitive advantages and what is it that the competition is doing. And then we discussed what is the forward or backward strategy and how both of them have a role to play in the market. And at various points of time, different corporations make use of both forward as well as backward strategy. The forward is the one that is heavily planned and does not depend on the tactics. And the backward is when you assemble all the successful activities together in order to take a retrospective nature and then develop what is the strategy you think is successful for your corporation and for your market. Then we also discussed the types of strategy, in which we talked about the corporate strategy, the operational strategy, the marketing strategy, and we also discussed what marketing mix is, what is communication mix, and what is integrated marketing communications. Then we discussed about product strategy, pricing strategy, and distribution strategy. And the last two strategies were again about marketing communications and about advertising and how they are important. Then we discussed the benefits of strategy in terms of making easier and quicker decisions, making more efficient decisions. We also said that tactical activity is able to build one upon the other. So it gives you that momentum by which you are able to proceed in a successive manner. And then we said that marketing communication strategy creates many more benefits through integration of communication mix and through integrating of marketing tools. We also talked about the various kind of marketing tools and what are the components of marketing strategy in terms of product, in terms of market, in terms of defining what you stand for and the competition and its performance, the scope, objectives, dimension, timing, and the 3 C's, which are the customer, competition, and corporation. And then we summed it up in form of product, market, strength, scope, objectives, resources, and timing. Thank you very much for being with us.